dive deep into something truly amazing. Today we're talking about brain evolution. And get this, AI is now helping us figure out how our brains got here.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We're not just talking about how our brains work right now, but how they've developed over millions of years.
I know, right? We're diving into this news article from Neuroscience News. AI reveals how brain cells evolved over 320 million years. And it's actually based on research straight from the journal Science.
Oh, yeah. You know it's got to be good when it comes from science. This study used AI. Well, deep learning models, to be exact, to look at a mountain of genetic data. We're talking human, mouse, and even chicken brains.
Whoa, hold on. They basically taught a computer to understand brains. Like, how is that even possible?
Okay, so think of genes like blueprints for building a body, right?
Yeah.
But then there's this whole other set of directions. We call them regulatory codes. They're what control which genes get switched on or off in each cell. It's kind of like a massive switchboard controlling everything.
I'm picturing like a control panel with a zillion switches, and each switch controls one specific gene. So the combo of switches flipped on is the code for a particular brain cell.
You got it. That code tells each brain cell what its job is, and that's where deep learning comes in. Imagine you feed this AI a library of genetic blueprints from all those different brain cells across humans, mice, and chickens. It sifts through all that, finds patterns in how the genes get turned on and off, almost like a detective looking for fingerprints.
Okay, that's starting to make sense. But why chicken brains? Aren't human brains like way more, advanced?
Well, that's the cool thing. When you compare brains from species that split off millions of years ago, you can actually see what stayed the same over time and what's changed along the way.
Ah, so you're looking for those fundamental building blocks, the stuff that was crucial for survival way back when. That makes sense. So did they find anything like that?
Oh, for sure. One of the biggest surprises was that some brain cell codes haven't changed at all in over 320 million years. It's like finding software that still runs perfectly after all that time.
Whoa, seriously. So even though birds and mammals went down totally different evolutionary paths, some of their core brain wiring is the same.
Yep, that's what the AI showed. And this tells us a lot about what functions were crucial for animal life, period. Think about it. Breathing, basic senses, being able to move around those are all handled by circuits that haven't really needed to change much. They're that essential.
That makes me wonder about those chickens that keep running around after,
Interesting thought. This study doesn't actually look at that specifically, but it definitely shows how much all vertebrates have in common deep down.
Okay, so we've got these ancient brain circuits that haven't changed much, but evolution must have been busy messing with other parts of the brain too, right?
You know it. The AI models also showed that some regulatory codes, HAE, evolved differently, which explains why there are so many different types of brains in the animal kingdom.
I guess it makes sense. Like a bird's brain would need to evolve differently than a mammal's because of flight and stuff like that.
You got it. And this is where things get really interesting. The AI found some unexpected similarities between some bird neurons and those deep layer neurons in the mammalian neocortex.
Remind me what the neocortex is again.
It's the outer layer of our brain responsible for all the high-level thinking, language, planning, making decisions. Scientists thought it was unique to mammals, but these findings suggest that maybe it's not so simple.
So are you saying birds might have brain cells that do similar things to those super smart parts of mammal brains? Whoa.
It definitely challenges what we thought we knew about brain evolution. That's what makes using AI in research so cool. It's letting us see these connections and patterns that we probably wouldn't have spotted on our own.
Right. Okay, so we've got these ancient brain circuits that are key for survival, and then all this incredible diversity, and even some unexpected similarities between species. So where do we go from here?
Well, now that we've laid the groundwork, let's dig a little deeper into those specific differences and similarities. Plus, we'll look at how all this knowledge could help us understand brain diseases in a whole new way. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Welcome back. Man, my brain is still trying to process all that from the last part. It's just crazy to think that some parts of our brains are basically running on ancient code.
Yeah.
320 million years old. That's mind-blowing.
I know, it really is. It kind of makes you feel connected to this huge, long history of life, doesn't it?
Totally. Okay, so before we went to, I guess what felt like a break, we were talking about how AI is helping pinpoint those differences and similarities in brain cells across species. What were some of the biggest things they found?
Well, besides those ancient neural circuits we talked about, which were just incredible to see, the AI also found some fascinating stuff about how bird brains evolved. Remember those similarities we mentioned between certain bird neurons and those deep layer neurons in the mammalian neocortex?
Oh, yeah. That was the part where my jaw basically hit the floor.
Haha, right. Well, it turns out those bird neurons are located in a part of the bird brain called the pallium. It's not exactly the same as the neocortex, but it does some of the same things, like processing sensory information and making decisions.
So even though birds and mammals took totally different routes, they both ended up with brain regions that handle complex thinking. It's like evolution found different ways to solve the same problems, huh?
Exactly. That's convergent evolution in action. Different species evolve similar traits because they're dealing with similar pressures from their environments.
It makes me think of how crows can use tools and figure out puzzles. Are you saying they might be using those, like bird version neocortex cells, to do that?
It's a really interesting possibility. We'd need to do more research to know for sure, but that's the beauty of using AI like this. It gives us these totally new ways to ask questions about all the different brains out there.
Okay, so we're seeing this amazing conservation ND divergence in brain evolution. But how does all this connect back to us, like to our daily lives?
That's a great question. One of the most promising things about this research is what it can tell us about diseases, especially neurological ones.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that before. Can you give me an example? Like, how could this help with something like Parkinson's disease?
Absolutely. So, in diseases like Parkinson's, certain brain cells stop working right or even die off. Usually, it's a mix of genes and environmental factors.
So, like, those switches on the control panel get stuck or just break.
A perfect way to put it. When researchers use AI to study the codes in both healthy and diseased brain cells, they can start to see which specific genetic differences might be causing the problem.
Kind of like comparing a circuit that's wired correctly to one that's all messed up. Makes sense.
Exactly. And once you know which circuits are faulty, you can start to think about how to fix them or come up with treatments that target the root cause of the disease, genetically speaking.
Wow, that is so cool. So basically, learning about how brains have evolved can help us figure out how to treat some of the toughest diseases out there. It's like using the past to fix the present.
Haha. Love that analogy. And we have to remember this research is still pretty new, but the potential is huge.
I'm definitely feeling that. It's like we're standing at the edge of some big breakthrough in how we understand the brain. But all this talk about genes and AI, it makes me wonder, are we just robots programmed by our genes? Is free will even real?
Haha. Those are some deep questions. We could probably do a whole other deep dive just on that.
Hmm.
But I think it's important to remember that our genes give us a starting point, but they don't control everything we think and do. We still get to make choices, right?
Phew, good. I wouldn't want to think that every decision I make was already decided by my genes millions of years ago.
Definitely not. But we do have to acknowledge that genes play a role in who we are. It's this intricate dance between nature and nurture.
I like that. Well, I feel way more knowledgeable about brain evolution now,
Yeah,
but there's got to be more to discover, right?
always. In the final part, we'll talk about where this research is heading next. And we'll get into what these findings mean for big concepts like intelligence and consciousness.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. It's crazy to think we started with just one news article and ended up going on this epic journey through evolution.
It really shows you the power of asking questions, doesn't it? And how AI can help us uncover secrets about, well, ourselves.
For sure. Okay, but before we go totally overboard with all the amazing possibilities, I want to step back for a second. We've talked about how this research could help treat some serious diseases. But are there any downsides? I mean, this is pretty powerful stuff we're talking about, right?
You're right to ask that. With any scientific discovery, we got to think about the ethical side of things.
Like what kind of things?
Well, let's take that example of using AI to spot genetic links to Parkinson's. That knowledge could be huge for developing treatments, helping people understand their risks, right? But then you have to think about privacy and discrimination.
You mean like, could insurance companies say, nope, we won't cover you, you're too likely to get sick?
Exactly. Or employers could use that info to decide who to hire. Those are serious issues. We got to be careful as this tech gets more advanced.
So it's not just about the science itself, but how we use it.
Exactly. We need to talk about the ethics, and not just scientists. We need ethicists, policymakers, the public. Everyone needs to be part of the conversation so we can use this knowledge for good.
Right. Okay, so it's not all perfect. There are some big challenges. But let's end on a high note. What's next for this research? What are you most excited about?
I'm really excited about expanding this to other animals. Imagine what we could learn from, say, cephalopods.
Cephalopods, you mean like octopuses and squid?
Yeah. They've got these crazy complex nervous systems, and they're really smart, good problem solvers. Studying them could give us a whole new perspective on how intelligence evolved.
Like opening a whole new chapter in the story of brains. Anything else?
Well, as these AI models keep getting better, we might even be able to simulate brain evolution. Like rewind the clock, change a few things, and see how different pressures could have shaped the brains we have today.
That's like playing God with evolution. But, in a good way.
Uh-huh, exactly. We could test out ideas, explore different paths, really get down to the basics of how brains develop and work.
It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. It feels like we're entering this whole new era in neuroscience. AI is helping us understand the past, A&D giving us a glimpse into the future of our own brains.
It really is a fascinating time to be studying brains. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be using AI to make some big discoveries yourself.
Well, I might need to learn a little more about coding first. But seriously, this deep dive has been amazing. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the brain, just how complex it is, how amazing, and of course the power of AI to unlock its secrets.
It's been great talking about all this with you. And remember, the evolution of our brains, it's still happening. We're all part of that story.
That's so true. To everyone listening, keep asking those questions, stay curious, and hey, maybe do a little deep dive of your own into this stuff. Who knows? Maybe we'll get you on the next one. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.
Yeah.